We're almost at that new moon in Cancer, 2026. So I did another video where I talked a little bit about the new moon in Cancer and Cancerian season and the retrograde, and how people say, new moon is a time to start new goals, but retrograde is a time really more for review, and how do we integrate those two. And we talked about lineages and going bringing back to life things from our lineages and things like that. But I didn't go over I talked a lot about Cancer and Capricorn, both of those, and what those are going to be feeling and going through during the season, but I didn't talk about Gemini as much. And I have some prominent Gemini in my chart, and I kind of just felt into it over the weekend, and then looked up some things and saw that I was feeling into what was like going on. So I'm gonna share that with you now. Okay, so Gemini right now, in July of 2026, is feeling a lot of restlessness. It's really intense too, because we've had Chiron, which has to do with the wounded healer, moving into Taurus. So there is a lot of emotion with that aspect, a lot of emotion already in Cancerian season. Cancerians could almost rule emotion, not just history and the Akashic records and all the histories throughout time, her stories, their stories, but they could rule emotions. Like there's a lot that has to do with like processing emotions in Cancer season, and feeling the emotions. And then we also have that happening in retrograde, so it's bringing up stuff from the past. Chiron has to do with the past, so Chiron's at like 0 degrees. Chiron is going over all those past wounds that never seem to heal. And there's a reason why those wounds don't heal, but that's very distracting. The feelings are very distracting for Gemini. Gemini is like, this is a time for the general collective, of where the general collective society and world and humans want to kind of go more inward right now. A lot of us do. Except for Pisces might be coming out of their shell a little bit more, because some Pisces have Leo in the 3rd house. But in general, people are feeling more reflective. They're asking questions like, what makes me feel safe? What makes me feel secure? What makes me feel safe in the world? Like what makes me feel good in my body? And Chiron is bringing up stuff that has to do with like stuff from our childhood or past lives. And past lives can mean literally like our childhood, or depending on how old we are, it could be if you're 50, it could be your 20s or your teen years or whatever. But Chiron has to do with those really old wounds. Like a lot of times it can rule what happened during developmental years. And because we've had a major shift with Pluto in Aquarius, it's no longer in Capricorn, it is still our chance to kind of go through these past archives of our past and rewrite them. We may be unconsciously programmed to have particular wounds, like maybe mom and dad weren't there for us the way that mom and dad might have been there for other people, or other people's moms and dads might have been there for them. And maybe if we weren't very like independent children or very creative children, we might have been like, really feeling that like as a wound, or whatever it was. Like it could have been bullies on the playground, it could have been neglect, whatever it was. We have the chance now to realize like we are not those children anymore. That is not us anymore. Our reality now is different, and claim it. It is up to us to claim what our real reality is. Science, I get stuff through my newsfeed every day about new scientific theories and discoveries, and quantum physics, and science is constantly recognizing that even with quantum entanglement, it's recognizing that we are creating our reality as we go. We can change. That's a very basic. Like the reality that we are unconsciously programmed for, well, we're not machines. We are human conscious beings. I'm sorry, there are people who are all about their Cartesian theories, but frankly, like, you know, if you pinch a machine, it doesn't say ow. You can program it to, but like, if we make a yelp when you pinch us, it's because we're beings. We're conscious beings, not because we've been programmed. So just because we've been programmed unconsciously to feel a certain way and to think a certain way doesn't mean that we can't change our minds. It doesn't mean that we can't choose a different way. Now, there are these particular wounds that, you know, Chiron is the archetype of the wounded healer, the wounds that won't seem to heal no matter what you do. And that's so that we're constantly finding new ways, constantly realizing we don't know everything and finding new ways to discover what can help ease that pain or manage that pain. So Chiron aspects right now are going to be bringing up things like self-esteem. It's going to be bringing up, let's see, I wrote something down right here. Learning to receive instead of constantly striving. Now, I touched upon this in another video for Capricorn. This is definitely a time for Capricorn. You know, there's a lot of Capricorns out there that might like check in on people and be like, how you doing? Like, they might be like the rock, you know, like the steadfast one that's like, I got it all together, I'm holding it all together, everybody cool, you know, you got what you need, let's do this. Now is the time for Capricorn to be like, I really need this, to reach out with needs, and reach out in a way that's like vulnerable, with vulnerable requests, and recognize all the people that can be feeling so honored to show up for Capricorn. Well, that's kind of going for Gemini. It's similar. The problem is that because we're in like the Cancerian season where people are going inward and they're like reflecting and really thinking about like their internal world and what makes them feel good in their body, and they're noticing all this stuff. They're getting all these psychic hits and feeling extra, like a lot of people are feeling a little more hermit-like wanting to crawl into their cozy little shells. Gemini energy during that particular season, or during that particular energy field or time and space, feels restless. It's like telling a child to be still when really they want to explore. They want to have experiences. So Gemini's in between kind of the energies of Taurus and Cancer. And so it's got like, sometimes it touches in with one wing to like being grounded. Other times it touches in with another wing to being like, to understanding the emotions. But the ultimate journey for, or the ultimate quest, or whatever you want to call it, the ultimate thing for Gemini is to like feel the emotions. You're telling them like, sit there and feel the feeling, like of what it feels like to have low self-esteem, or feel unworthy, or feel like there's a bottomless black hole within oneself. You're telling Gemini to sit still and just feel that, when they would rather be exploring the black hole, or they'd rather be exploring something other than the black hole. And there's a universe to explore within that, but it happens by being still and being with it. Gemini, this is a time to really recognize everything that one already has and sit with it. Finances, stuff can come up with finances. Gemini's been feeling it for a lot of 2026, I think. A lot of Geminis are, but a lot is going to be coming up with finances for people in general with Chiron and Taurus. All of a sudden you're going to be noticing like, wow, it seems like prices are just skyrocketing on everything. And it's not all of a sudden for everybody, but you're going to feel it. For some people, they're going to really feel it. What was I going to say? I got a little distracted there. I started thinking about apples. Gemini, Oh, so self-esteem. Oh, financial. So one way to like, it, this is like, I'm gonna tell you some woo-woo, like way out there, silly, ridiculous stuff. But for Gemini energy to like really tap in to like Gemini right now, like to feel the feelings needs to get out of the head. So like if it's money that you're feeling like you don't have, this is the time to go through your penny jar and literally like wash all those pennies. Wash them. Don't let them go down the sink or the drain. It'll clog up your drain. But wash them. Like sit there and scrub all the dirt off of them. I know it seems like a senseless, ridiculous task, but this is a way to get you from your head into your body. The kinesthetic feeling of the water and the soap. I know it seems like a waste, but this is not. This is a valuable thing to do. And count, if you need to use your mind, count your pennies like you would. I know it sounds like I'm not usually one to say count your blessings, but it's a way to get you into that feeling on a kinesthetic felt sense and out of the head, out of the abstract, out of the perpetuating the unconscious narrative, this like old script that like doesn't have to apply anymore, that I don't have money for that. You could literally count, like you could literally get your money jar out and wash them. I know it seems senseless. Why would you wash them? Well, because you're valuing. Like we take care of what we value. So take the time to like wash it tenderly in a way that you may have never even recognized that you were bathed tenderly as a baby or a child, or maybe you never were, but do it the way that guy that has those videos where he washes his little chihuahuas and he feeds his little chihuahuas and he makes a hole to do it with your money jar, do it with your penny jar. If it's like people, like that's something that can come up for us too. Like maybe we had a childhood where we lived far away from lots of people. Maybe we lived in the country, and maybe we're homeschooled, or maybe we were just never had like anybody to talk to in school, or whatever it is. If it's people, or maybe there were huge losses. If it's people, then you're gonna want to get with people. You're gonna want to recognize everything. A big thing that's happening right now, and I talked about it in another video, is mother energy. So we're gonna want to like look at every mother and father energy, but we're kind of moving a little bit away from the father energy because Capricorn, the Capricorn full moon already happened, and during Cancer season, the main focus is finding balance by leaning more into the Cancerian qualities, which would be more like receptive and mother. So with Cancerian qualities, receptivity and mother, it's really recognizing like everything that we do receive, and really like when I say blow it up, I mean like in photography when you like blow up a picture to make it bigger. I don't mean like sabotage it. So I'm like thinking magnify really with your attention and your intentions. Post pictures of yourself with all the human friends that you've ever had, or that you have, or the social things that you are doing. Like if you're feeling like, or the social things that you have had, make a big deal out of it. Really appreciate it. Put some love there. It's kind of like things grow where our attention flows. And if you're, there's some things that, will grow if you neglect them, and that's great. But like there's other things that require attention. And this is very much a season of water and earth. So it is very much a season of like, let your heart flow emotionally. Let yourself feel the emotions of the things that you love. Maybe it's a record collection and it makes you feel really abundant. Take time to like showcase those. Take a nice photograph of it. Post it for all to see. Like, look what I've got, and I feel grateful for this, and I feel proud of this. If it's people, like look at the people that are around me, like that I appreciate. If you're feeling lonely and you're feeling like you don't have enough people around you. So Gemini energy feels, and it has felt restless all through Cancerian season, and I think a little bit leading into Cancerian season too. but I definitely feel it. I have some Gemini aspects in my chart, and I can feel it. So I can imagine people who have it as their sun sign, like that's our ego. Our sun is like our ego. It has to do with like our developmental stage in life. Like, did we get enough appreciation or attention for our self-esteem and things like that? For me, like my Gemini falls under like my sex drive and my motivation. So it's like where I find my energy and what drives me. So like for me, like if I get bored, I get depressed. In my love life, I have to have things be interesting, mentally stimulating. If something is just not mentally stimulating, I'm just like, it doesn't matter how hot or gorgeous, like something, forget it. Like I just have to be mentally stimulated. And Gemini needs the kinesthetic. It needs to be more than just in the mind, like one of my when I've had freedom with various lovers throughout my lifetime, like one was like a scavenger hunt, and I was like the person to find, and like the person literally got off the plane, and like every step from the moment they got off the plane till the moment we met up was part of a scavenger. Like I was sending them text messages about where they would go with like a rhyme and what they would have to do like until they found me. And then when they found me, I was in this like place where they had to go through all these different rooms to find me, and the place was scandalous. It was a scandalous place that they had to find me in. So like if the ego, so that's my Mars, that's like how I'm motivated creatively, and I'm very tactile. Like Gemini needs like things to be tactile, and it's hard for me to tap into emotions when I'm driven. It's like I'm free from my emotions when I'm driven, so it's really nice for me. But in the bedroom or outside of the bedroom, wherever like those romantic moments might happen, or those non-romantic but fun moments, sometimes learning how to bring a little emotion into those moments for me. So if your placement is in your ego, like your sun, if your main sign is Gemini, where those things are going to show up for you are going to be less about like your motivation and how you move through the world, but more about like what you need, and how your ego works. So to do, ego healing type stuff and all that jazz, what's really awesome is to do things that are kinesthetic, like actually holding, if it's money that you feel like you don't have enough of, holding the pennies and counting them. You cannot deny that, like, when you are counting them, that the number is not getting bigger, and valuing it by doing a physical act. That's why I suggest that exercise. If it's your friendships, spend time with your friendships in a way that you can feel things kinesthetically. If this is a platonic friendship, maybe you get into a pool together where you're feeling like water around your bodies, or maybe you climb trees together, or walk through a sandy place, or do something that's going to get you in a tactile place where you're recognizing and affirming. One of the most recent scientific studies that I was taking in recently that I thought it was fascinating was when someone would say a color that was their favorite color, the feedback that was happening neurologically was that a particular part of the brain was lighting up in that with the person talking about that color that they really liked. And then when they talked about the color that they didn't really like, it was also lighting up for them, but it was lighting up in a part of the brain that was missing the dopamine and like the oxytocin and the even like the buildup of vasopressin they had mentioned at one point. Um, so even talking about what it is that we like. So like while we're in, like make a show of it, like, oh, 1 penny, 2 penny, 3 penny, 4, oh, like make it a game where you're really like doing it up and really giving that verbal appreciation to it, whether it's, maybe it's your friends, 1 friend, 2 friend, 3 friend, oh, using the words. It's wiring the chemicals and the molecules in our bodies to create, to go down pathways that reward our nervous system. The reward pathways are triggered through that. And quantum science believes that we are creating our reality. So even by just speaking it, it's bringing more of that awareness to you. It's kind of like, if you're fascinated with a green car, you're going to just start seeing green cars everywhere. It's like where we place our focus. So it's a combination of those things, I think, is how I'm like personally navigating through it all. I think also like because Chiron at 0 degrees in the first 3 degrees during this like Cancerian season, and Chiron having to do with like all of the different ways that we can explore how to heal, and the pain that like never seems to go away and all that jazz. There's so many different ways to like work with that. Sometimes we can just like allow ourselves to go full on into it, like write a song or sing a song about what the feeling is that's being felt, and get it out of the body that way, and then you can move on. Once you've already like sung, practiced, performed it, it's amazing how you're like, yeah, that was then, this is now. But other people might be going through it, and then they'll experience it as if it's there now, and they'll experience it in their own way. It's a wonderful way to like, sometimes glamorizing the pain. I went to a concert where like a lot of the songs had to do with like pain and kind of like addressing pain, and sometimes glamorizing the pain, and sometimes like making deals with the pain, and like letting go of it or exchanging it, or deals like as if like to be free from it, or but a lot of the sometimes avoiding what we resist persists too, so that can like be a thing. But I do think like Gemini is very capable of having the intelligence that is required to recognize like, okay, like maybe when I was a child, like I had these sorts of feelings, but I can recognize that it's not happening in the same way that it happened then, and there was a way that it was dealt with and handled then, and we can look and see like, was it a way that I really want to handle things, or would I like to try to handle it differently this time? I'll give an example. Let's see. During like my years from like 2 years old to like 5 years old, I lived in an area where it was considered one of the best places in the world to live, but the street that I happened to live on, for a single mom to live on that street, it happened to have like regular gang wars happening. So there was like the black population and the Mexican population, and there was gunshots and fights and knife fights, and all kinds of stuff would go down at the park across the street. And as a result, the children in the neighborhood kind of emulated these ideas of like us versus them, and that played out like on the street a lot as well. And I was very sheltered from that. I was allowed to have people over in my own space where things were set up for children, but going out in like unmonitored outside wasn't as common of a thing until I got closer to like the age of 5. And then I learned why, because I started seeing some bloodshed. But naturally, like, children were acting out like the things that they would see around them. One day it was my turn to get rocks thrown at me. I wasn't the only child that had this done. Many children had this done, and would do that to each other. And for me, it was really shocking because that's not something I had experienced. And so I started doing that too as a child. And I have a memory of doing that to someone, and like just the big regret, and how shocked like people were that I did that. But it's learned behavior, it's programming, right? But we're not computers, we're not machines, we're human, we're like conscious beings. So we can learn that just because our programming told us to do this, we can actually have choice and choose what we want to be conscious about. So that wasn't a habit that I kept on with. Well, then again, during the pandemic, we fast forward many, many years later, the pandemic happens, and my partner and I move into this area, and it's a very nice area. It's considered one of the nicest places in the world. There were lots of places that were not considered good places in between, the age of 5 and grown-up life during the pandemic. But fast forward to the pandemic, and I've been through hell and back. I've been places angels would fear to tread, but we find ourselves in a situation, and I have a partner who's of a more marginalized group, and I am more marginalized, and we show up in this neighborhood, and we just so happen that there's this guy who's like an alcoholic, and he has 2 gallons of liquor every day, and like 1 gallon is dark and 1 gallon is light, and he's just pouring shots for anybody that'll have a shot with him. But he's also raging. He's really angry that we've moved in across the way. He's used to sitting on his porch and just like looking in the windows across the way. And maybe I would imagine if I were him, I might be even be looking at the reflection of the sky through the windows, because that's all he could see. He didn't have windows on the other side of his place. He just had windows facing everyone, and that was his thing to do. And there was a very beautiful young lady that lived right next to us also, but I'd wave because it's kind of weird when somebody's staring in your place, like, what can you do? And I needed sunlight, so I just wave, and that made it worse. That like really didn't help. So this guy would just rage. He'd scream at us, and everything would be echoed in this like little like space between the buildings because of the way the sound traveled. This guy, we were there for maybe 12 weeks, and I was like, somebody asked me, have you ever experienced anything this hostile? And I'm like, well, not since like that day when children threw rocks at me when I was like 4 or 5. This is the kind of question you're going to ask yourself during Chiron, in Taurus during Cancerian season. Have you ever felt like this before? And how did you handle it then? Did that work? So how was it handled then? My mother took me inside, put me under cold water, like to get me to stop screaming. And then I also like learned to not throw rocks back or throw rocks at other people. I had to learn that. So that's how it was handled then. That's a long time ago, right? So like, it's not that the wound never healed. I got over that. I lived plenty of life where nobody was trying to throw rocks at me. Once in a while, some bullets would be, I'd have a bullet come through the bus window, or there'd be some shards of bullets that came through the house window in my living room. But like, that's just because of the neighborhood. It wasn't directed at me. But here we are again in a situation that feels very intense. And this guy would like put thumbtacks in my partner's parking space, and I mean, he was, somebody who's carrying around 2 gallons of alcohol, like pouring shots and drinking constantly. You can imagine. And it was the pandemic. So you're going to ask yourself, like, have I been through something like this before? And if I was, okay, how was it handled then? And recognize there's Chiron at 0 degrees. 0 means unlimited possibilities. Between life and death, like unlimited possibilities of ways that it could be handled this time. This time we happen to have the freedom to be like, you know what, we don't have to stick around for this. we don't have to. We can leave. And that's what we did, like 12 weeks. The landlord was a doctor. He never gave me back my $3,000 deposit. And that was really upsetting, especially because even though I didn't know who he was during the pandemic because he was wearing a mask a lot, later I realized he was somebody from my dance community. That was really painful. But you can like choose to like do something different. In that particular situation back then, it was cold water. You know, I'm not gonna go take a cold shower because somebody has an alcohol problem and they're like taking it out on me. But you can choose like how are you going to treat yourself the next time you're feeling feelings that are similar to that. You can use it kind of like, hey, no bark. No. You can use that information. You can use it in a way that's like, okay, go back through time. Like Cancerian season is about going during retrograde. It's a Cancerian season in retrograde. Let's go back in time and take a look. When was I feeling this way before? When did I go through something like this before? And what did I do? And what would I like to do now? You have choices on how, like we're not always as hopeless and helpless as we think that we are, but we're just so busy trying not to feel the painful feelings because there was a time when we were hopeless. Like when I was less than 5 years old, I didn't have the strength of like an adult that was like, 50 times my size that was putting me under like cold water to get me to stop crying. So like, but now like you're not that's not you anymore. Your body is different, your life is different, you're in a whole different place. So what do you choose to do? And in our case, we chose to like stay in other places and then get out of there. And some people, those things from the past that come up, it could be anything. It could be anything that you've experienced in the past that you're like kind of feeling on now that feels like maybe it didn't get resolved the way you wanted it to, or something like that happens. Because, like the same things do happen over and over again in various shapes and forms. If you look at the movies that we go to the movies to watch, they're the same stories over and over again. They just change a thing here or there. A lot of the books we read, they're kind of the same thing over and over again. And Gemini can really struggle during this time because it can feel boring. But then there's also like not a desire to be in the emotion of it either, because like the emotions don't seem to go anywhere. And they seem useless. Like, what's the point? Like, it's bad enough feeling boring. Like, feeling boring can be depressing. So like, why feel more feelings than that? Like, it's too much. So but these are some suggestions for like this Cancerian season for Geminis, because Chiron is in Gemini and it's beginning its shift into Gemini. I think it's like the first time in like 47 years since it's been in this placement or something like that. Don't quote me on that part, but it's a huge shift, this particular extra element that's happening during this time. So cheers, and I'll see you on the other side.